Good afternoon, everybody, and hello, Rahul Mishra. I am
Yeah,
Jamal Shaikh, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to a brand new episode of the India Story Continues. This is the online add on to India's premier arts, design, and culture festival called the India Story, conceptualized by Madhu Nyotia and supported by the Nyotia Arts Trust. Very aptly, this series of performances, workshops, and heartwarming, honest conversations kicked off on the Independence Day of India this year on August 15th. Today, we are already at a very successful episode 8 as we go into the festive season head on with positivity and hope as the India story continues. Joining me today is a fashion designer every Indian is so proud of. Rahul Mishra is the first Indian to ever be invited to feature as a guest designer on the official calendar of the prestigious Paris Haute Couture Week. But that achievement, Rahul, sounds so much bigger when we realize that you don't come from a Tony South Mumbai or South Delhi environment. Rahul comes from a tiny little town outside of Kanpur, which may have as little to do with fashion as 2020 has probably to do with the good news. Rahul, I'm going to begin with a confession. I am not a fashion journalist. In 2005, 2006, when your work first got noticed, I was editing a magazine called Men's Health, where the men were accused of wearing very little, and the few women we featured wore even less. So I did not follow your work. I first noticed you in 2014 when you won the Woolmark Prize at the Milan Fashion Week. Again, you were a women's wear designer, and for better or for worse, I've spent very little time in my life shopping for clothes for women. Then 2018 happened. I got dragged into a couture show of yours by some Bollywood friends of mine who were visiting Delhi. And as quickly as I had planned to make my exit, as soon as the show was over, I chose that evening to hang around. You, Rahul, made a walk with your models, then with your wife, Divya, and I waited patiently for the cameraman to finish clicking you just to shake your hand and congratulate you. Why? Because I felt your design spoke the language of happiness. There was fantasy, romance, beauty, and fairy tale like joy that you could see in the eyes of every model wearing your clothes. Sure enough, your work got eyeballs. Soon enough, the hard to please Susie Menkes was saying complimentary things about you. Business of Fashion put you on the BOF Top 500. And the magazine I edit, India's largest lifestyle magazine called the Hindustan Times Brunch, called you earlier this year the designer of the new decade. Success festers envy. And when some senior designers made calls to me to pick a bone, I knew that you, Rahul Mishra, had arrived. I look forward to talking to you about this incredible journey of sincerity, hard work, and success. But before that, a few words about the event we're at. Tell us, Rahul, about your experience at the India Story.
I think what Madhu has done, like with something like the India Story, where actually, everything is combined, everything is together, art, celebration of art, culture, and Kolkata is in that way, I would say, cultural capital of India. And when you see something like that happen in Kolkata, which is like, which kind of starts a dialogue for entire India in
Right.
terms of art, craftsmanship, design, fashion, everything comes together. And then you have got amazing performances over there. It is more of an event which kind of sets a festive trend. And this is what I've realized. Like, I did one of the shows, and I must say, it was one of the best shot video of my fashion show ever. The way the
Fantastic.
way the way I think creative community from all across come together to celebrate, and everything about that place, everything about that entire small little village is set to create
Correct.
an experience when
Correct.
you visit
You
over
know,
there.
the story of modern India started from Calcutta, so it's absolutely apt that the India story happens from there. We have a little video of that beautiful show you're talking about, so let's cut to that right away. How fantastic is that, Rahul? Every show of yours honestly betters itself. So, congratulations. Honestly, we mean it when we say that all of us as Indians are proud of you and we wish you every success. We know you're going to make us even more proud. Rahul,
Thank
you're
you.
about 14 years into the business of fashion. Many would say you've achieved too much too soon. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky. Like, I think similar thing was reminded me when I got included in Haute Couture calendar in Paris, and they also said the same thing. Like, when you are invited, you should value it, because there was other brands which are quite longer in business than you. They are more than $1 billion in turnover, and they are not making a cut this season. So you should take it very seriously. Mr.
Yeah.
Pascal Moran, who is like executive president of Federation, he
Yes.
reminded me that, and he told
Yes.
me, like, you would be amongst the youngest couturier right now on the calendar,
Yeah.
and you should really work hard for next 2 3 months. And I was like, oh my god, like, this is more pressurizing for my first show. So I'm very thankful. Like, actually, my entire studies about design started in 2003 at an ID in Dubai. So in that way, if I say, as a student, I am 17-year-old studying design, studying craft, and all that.
Right.
And
Right.
17 of time, I think I'm learning more every day. I'm, like, in a way, as a team, we all are focusing more on learning.
Correct.
We are still fairly very, very young brand. So in that
Yes.
way, and my current company is only 7 year old, like, which is Delhi based
Oh,
now. So we again started
right.
from zero.
Right.
And in 2009, when I finished my college, officially convocated from NID, I went
Yes.
for 3 years of course, and I stayed over on the campus 6 years.
Right.
And during,
Well,
like, and one more thing there, when you are studying,
yes.
NID helped me with my first. I remember Gen Next show at Lakme Fashion Week. I
Yes.
did not have even 10,000 rupees to pay the first fee of Gen Next show, so NID
Right.
paid that fee. So I
Right.
was very lucky, like, where NID supported me for first 2 3 seasons. Then I went to
Right.
study in Milan,
Right.
qualified in 2009. Then started
Yes.
my brand officially in 2009. But
Right.
experience wise, everything has worked really, really well for us.
It absolutely has. Rahul, fashion has a lot to do with posturing, of making yourself seem important, sometimes more important than you actually are. But you have a humility about you that nobody can really completely understand. You still address Tarun Tahiliani as Tarun Tahiliani ji and Rohit Bal as sir. Um, what do you do to ensure that success doesn't go to your head?
I think it's. I think most important thing is, like, who are the people you stay with, and if you surround yourself with people who praise you every day, they do not give you a real picture of life. I
Yes.
think it might get into your head. So I'm very thankful to Divya. She's the biggest critique.
Yes.
We do the best collection, and while fittings are going on, right before the collection, she will come and tell me in the evening, Rahul, what, we can make these clothes a little better. I don't
Okay.
like this finesse of this and
Reality
all
check
that.
at home.
And that's how my entire team is also. So one of the things which I had from NID days, like I remember one of the animation design seniors, he
Yes.
made one of my caricature where I'm climbing on a pipe to reach a fourth floor flat of my faculty to show
Yes.
him, take his
Yes.
feedback about
Yes.
one of the drawing which I did. So he made the
Right.
caricature, and that still continues. Like I like to take feedbacks, and
Right.
feedbacks which are genuine feedbacks, where
Right.
actually it should be negative also,
Right.
so that one can improve. And when you know that there's so much shortcoming within you have, then
Yes.
obviously
Your head stays on your shoulder. Correct. But we're going to get to that negative feedback but before that, HT Brunch in January this year, Rahul called you designer of the new decade. A couple of days later, a very important gentleman in his speech of introduction also referred to you as the designer of the new decade. Do you remember who that was?
Yeah, it was ambassador to India, like French ambassador.
So that, Rahul, is none other than His Excellency the Ambassador of France to India,
Wow,
Emmanuel Lenain. Your first surprise of today. Please welcome
wow.
Ambassador Emmanuel Lenain.
Well, hello.
Ambassador,
So, how
Can
are
you can
you?
you can you hear me?
we
Yes,
can hear you very well, Ambassador. Thank you for being here.
I'm good.
Welcome to
so
the
thankful.
story
So
continues. And look at the surprise in Rahul's face. This is worth the moment of the surprise that we had planned. Uh,
I'm-
Ambassador, we know that the Paris Haute Couture Week is a prestigious event. Please give us an idea of how important you say it's in the cultural calendar of France.
well, thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased to see Raoul again, and I know he's a very modest person, and I'm sorry. I apologize because I'm going to praise him. I mean, he's a very special friend of ours that I wanted to discuss with you today because we feel a lot for him. I mean, you're talking about the Paris Fashion Show, but it
Yes,
dates back longer, I must say. He was
right,
already invited to a Salon du Prêt-à-Porter back in Paris in 2007, as early as 2007. But
right, right.
obviously, the Paris Fashion Week is something apart. I mean, Raoul is the first Indian creator to be invited, and that's a remarkable achievement. And his work is no short of an exemplary. We all know that. We admire that. We admire the way he can use traditional material, textile from India, the way he can incorporate concern for sustainability, which is key to the future of
Yes,
fashion industry, and the
yes,
way obviously is so creative and amazingly creative, drawing inspiration from whatever he sees. And I remember discussing with him and him talking to me about the inspiration he drew from a movie like Madagascar, like
yes,
Trip to the Maldives Island,
yes,
or paintings by Douanier Rousseau, like The Dream. Remember
yes,
all that, and I was very impressed. Now
yes,
it's coming this year to the Paris Fashion Show, and
yes,
that's amazing. We are very proud first that we can have the show. I mean,
yes,
the show is we feel is the best venue in the year for fashion, twice a year. But this,
yes,
in times of COVID, it's an amazing achievement
yes,
to have this show.
yes,
There will be some physical haute couture show. There will be some digital show. It will be a mix.
right,
All
right,
together, we're going to have 84 houses, which is
right,
amazing that we could do that. And
yes,
there will be some great events. There will be Designer Day. There will be Sphere at Palais de Tokyo. With support of
yes,
L'Oréal, so it will be amazing. There will
yes,
be events across Paris,
yes,
exhibition.
yes,
I love personally, I'm a big fan of photography, so I'm always delighted that there can be some good show. There will be
right,
a good show about Man Ray and fashion.
right,
There will be a good show
right,
about a great photographer I like at
Yeah.
the Modern Art Museum de la Ville de Paris, photographer called
Right.
Sarah Moon.
Right.
She's less known than Van Rey, but she's a great photographer. And
Right.
personally, I would love to be there. I'm a bit sorry
Yes.
that this year we will not be able to welcome tourists from India and friends from
Right.
India due to
Right.
restriction to travel. But
Right.
be assured that we're doing our maximum best to lift the
Yes.
restrictions as soon as possible. We're
Right.
really trying. I mean, we
Yes.
did already for students, which was a great
Yes.
achievement. We're going to do it for tourists as soon
Yes.
as possible.
Well, we look forward to that, Ambassador.
Hey,
Sorry. Yes. Go ahead.
I mean, I know time is short, but am I allowed to ask questions also?
Absolutely. Yes. We've been waiting for that. That, Rahul Mishra, is now a question from Ambassador Lane straight to you right here on the India Story Continues.
I'm going to be short. I just want to ask Raoul one question. 'Cause I'm always a bit curious to know how people these days they adapt to COVID, and I would like to know how a creator like Raoul, where does he draw his inspiration from these days in times of COVID? Those I mean, it has impacted. I mean, I'm sure the way he works, but also the way he thinks, the way he creates. Just wanted to him if he could give us a few details on that. Thank you.
I think so this is a wonderful, wonderful question, and I have been also figuring out. And thanks again for like such amazing words. Like it always stays like most special to me forever in life, and very encouraging. About inspiration, like I had this digital haute couture which I just did in the month of January, 7th of January, was a show. So for that also, when Mr. Raf Talidano and everybody sent us email about organizing digital haute couture, it was so well planned with all the partners almost in all continents, from Canal Plus to New York Times to everybody. So it was also kind of pressurizing, but I must say, this haute couture show became the most important show for us in life, because it was called Butterfly People. Because I realized when people were sitting at home and everybody was being paid for their time and everything, I thought that all the workers, everybody is going to be happy about it and situation will be great. When they got back to work, jokingly I asked them, "You must be really happy without work. Money was coming in. You were just sleeping throughout the day." They said, "No, sir. I just wanted to come back to work." So that is where it struck me, like all these workers, all these people, they live for art. There was also, because of COVID, a lot of uncertainty was creeping in, like how long a company can sustain them without work. But in the month of May, mid-May, when we started working on this new digital haute couture, it gave all of us a lot more hope. And I'm also sharing one thing, like usually when I draw something on paper, give that to embroiderer to make it on the fabric, what I look out for, because I'm always next to them, is their smile on the face. It's the first feedback about the design before anybody like Suzy Menkes or Vogue France or anybody gives any feedback. The first feedback comes from the embroiderer himself. And this time, everybody's face was covered. So I had
Ra-
really hard time with the mask on. How do I get the feedback about what is looking good? So then, and the muffled voice inside and all that, it was a kind of challenge. But I think there are a lot more thought which is going on right now as inspiration, because we are able to get more time to ourselves. We are looking inwards. So in that way, like one of the Richard Powers quote inspired me this season, like to reclaim a piece of land for nature in terms of forest. Humans should do nothing, nothing at all. So we saw a lot of things happen in Europe, India, where the animals were coming back, where nature was taking over the space and all that. And that is where it came a realization, like how beautiful the world is. The butterflies are right around our house right now. Sky has never been so blue the way this summer has been in Delhi. It almost looked like Parisian sky. So you must agree with that. Like someday the sky was really blue.
Absolutely, Rahul. That is fantastic. Your clothes provide escapism, and we also hope that we will be able to escape to France soon enough. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Rahul, have I anything more that you would like to say? Because
No,
ambassador, on behalf of we know that you have another commitment and that you have to go. But thank you for joining us on behalf of Madhu Nyotia and the entire team of the India Story. Thank you. We are nothing but grateful.
Thank you for invitation. Thank you.
thank you, sir.
Thank you. Rahul Mishra, did you expect that?
It was a big surprise.
So 20 years ago, you're a young student in Kanpur, then in Ahmedabad. Did you imagine just a few years later, you'd have the ambassador of France to India saying flattering things about you?
I tell you, like all these praises I keep aside in a cupboard. Like on my bad days, these are going to be like really, really crucial for me.
Is it?
Because
You
it
go back to the
is
reality check to,
just too
to
good
your wife.
altogether. And
Yes.
and a designer is as good as the last collection is. So I have to realize it. I have to keep this kind of thing to myself always.
That groundedness should remain, Rahul. Fantastic. I'm now going to take you back to one of your first big shows. A fashion industry friend of mine who I respect greatly told me yesterday how one of your earliest shows blended the North and the South. There was Benares on one side of the material and Kerala on the other side. Tell us more about that first special edition.
This was actually asked. This was a project which I was doing for Mint, HT Mint. It
Yes.
kind of launched, so it asked like 8 artists, like Riaz Komu was there, I
Yes.
was there, then Rahul Akerkar,
Yes.
different people from different areas to represent what
Yes.
is Idea India according to them.
Right. Right.
So it was representing Idea India. So that's where I thought about doing a reversible garment, because India is everything is like when you think about religion, region, everything are two sides of the same coin. It's the same India.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's why for me, whenever I was south of India, then you have like all these weavers who weave that fabric, where people go to temple of white and gold, very subtle.
Yes. Yes.
And they speak Malayali. They
Yes.
they live in southern tip of India. On
Right.
other north side of India, you have Banarsi weavers who all
Right.
speak Hindi, and they have
Yes.
got a very very strong Mughal influence in the
Right.
in the entire tapestry kind of design and all
Right.
that. So I had these
Right.
two things. And for
Yes.
me, these two are the most important facets of India. When it's a north and south divide, you have regional divide, you have religious divide. So
Yes.
how an outfit bridges without
Yes.
taking each other's identity. So people
Right.
are always like afraid of they're going to lose their identity. The culture, has to
Yeah.
be sustained. Because of
Yeah.
that, because of fear,
Yeah.
people end up, throwing stones at each other, fighting with each other. So for me, Idea India is all about this. So that's where I made this garment.
I think celebrating diversity is so crucial to the India story. And thank you for doing that. What an absolutely great start. But honestly, when pursuing such deep design philosophy, Rahul, is it possible to intellectualize maybe too much? I mean, at the end of the day, we're just creating good looking clothes to look better and feel good ourselves, right?
I think whatever we do, that's one thing which I've learned. And it's a very, very Gandhian idea, which my late Professor M.P. Ranjan showed us like in very early stage in Kochrab Ashram in Ahmedabad when he took us over there.
Yes.
It's a simple thought. So think of the weakest person you can help or harm, how he can attain Swaraj with whatever you want to do. So, my why comes from the purpose, why I want to make yet another outfit. And the process is how. The process should be inclusive. Process should be able to create more employment, and the product is born. So ultimately, it should be enjoyable. Then everything else like comes. This is a kind of skeleton. Then everything else comes into that, the beauty or inspiration and everything. It's like when I go to Maldives, I take inspiration from one beautiful, flower or plant or the entire scene which I see over there. I can come back, do digital print on that. Half an hour I will be done, and one day I will make an outfit. It's a quick fix, but it's going to create a job for half an hour.
Right.
If I machine embroider, it's going to create job for anybody for like 50 hours.
Yes.
But if I hand embroider, the same outfit creates work for 2,000 human hours. So for me, it's ASAP is like as slow as possible, not as soon as possible.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, there's a story that says you were brought up by your grandparents in Moholsi, and that your grandfather was quite the storyteller. Is that true?
Actually, grandmother.
Your grandmother.
Yeah, grandmother,
Can you
and
recall a story from that time that inspired you?
she used to tell a lot of stories. Actually, a lot of the stories which are also about the character. There's a guy who's I remember one story really, really well.
Yes.
And there was a there was a person who was passing through a jungle. He
Yes.
reaches to a hut, and that hut
Right.
belonged to somebody else. It was a demon
Yes.
over there. And what this
Right.
guy does with all his guys, because he was passing jungle, he was carrying a rope with him so that
Right.
he can take out water from the well. Then he
Yes.
was carrying a one soup kind of thing with him so that
Right.
he can take some food grains, and he can clean them up. So he was taking
Right.
all useful things he was carrying with him, a lota with him and all that,
Right.
a matka
Right.
with him to carry
Right.
water, then food. So everything, somehow her stories were all about, self-sufficiency. Her stories were doing
Right.
everything for yourself. Whatever
Right.
you produce, you use that. She
Right.
herself used to spin,
Yes.
yarn. I
Okay. Okay.
never valued it that
Right.
much, like why spinning, why she has to do that. And she
Right.
used to give it
Right.
to weavers.
Right.
My village has a
Yes.
5,000 people.
Yes.
And I must also tell you, my first teachers, two of my first
Yes.
teachers, my
Yes.
maths teacher was Ismail, Mohammed Ismail
Right.
Mansur Sahab,
Right.
and
Right.
other was Mr. Ajmeri Shah Khan. He used to teach me English,
Okay.
and a
Right.
4-year-old. So I
Right.
did not go to school. They would come to my home to teach me.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it was such a beautiful thing where actually
Right.
profession was not divided with the caste.
Right.
Profession was not somehow. So the village was far more
Sure.
cosmopolitan than most of the
Right.
cities which I see now. And I
Right.
learned a lot over there. So her story is about her like spinning yarn for herself. Then she used to have
Right.
block print.
Yes.
She used to only get that much of fabric done, which was surface
Right.
need for entire family.
Right. Right. That's
So I never
fantastic.
valued it till the time I went to
And
NID. I never valued it, and by first year NID, I lost her. So I could never tell her how amazing things what she was doing, how good work she was doing in her life.
well, I'm sure she's up there listening and as proud of you as all of us are. What is it? And it's a question that Rahul, you've probably been asked before. What is it that makes a little boy from Moholsi village get excited by high fashion?
I don't know. I'm still figuring out fashion as a term. So luckily, I went to study in Milan, and where I studied a lot. Now in Paris, which is fashion capital. But I'm more of a designer who like to solve problems through different approaches. That's how I was taught at
Right.
NID. So for me, problem related to sustainability, cultural sustainability, or we talk about creating more employment.
Right.
So everything, like for me, I don't believe in designing one simple outfit. I believe in designing a system around it. How it is
Right.
impacting the maker, how it is impacting the consumer, and how it kind of fits into this wasteful economy, I always say it, of today's time. How it kind of stays there, how much longevity have, then what is the afterlife of that. So all
Right.
these questions often like were part of my training at an ID, and I'm still trying to figure out, as we're
Yes.
trying to find a balance between commerce and sustainability.
Right. So, you've said that you're a designer and fashion is something you're trying to understand. Does that mean that your design will probably someday in the future go beyond clothes?
I think I'm already enjoying a lot of things. Like this is one thing I will share with you. Like after my shows, just to
Yes.
start from zero, so that I don't repeat
Yes.
myself, I do all other things. I get involved with one of my karigars. He's amazing. I mentioned his
Uh-huh.
name is Rais, Mohammad
Uh-huh.
Rais.
Uh-huh.
He's
Right.
amazing with
Right.
MS.
Right.
So I work with him. I sit with him,
Right.
call him
Right.
home in
Right.
the
Right.
basement or sometime in the lawn, where we kind of
Yes.
cut materials,
Yes.
make some furniture out of that. So I
Right.
do that. I
Yes.
also do, a little bit of sometimes putting film on the glass. I try to learn different things, even
Right.
mopping the floor and all that.
Okay.
So for me, design is everywhere. Design is everywhere. Even helping Divya to cook a meal. Like yesterday, she was making
Right.
amazing cake she made, and I was trying to help her.
Right.
So
Right.
all this, I would say, division between fashion, product,
Yes.
or
Yes.
architecture, everything exists in a mind.
Right.
No,
Very,
I
very
really want to
politically
explore.
correct. Yeah, yeah. So very politically correct, non-committal answer that we don't know what Rahul Mishra is going to do next, right? But we will get to that. We will get back to you on someday. So you spoke after the show. What about before the show? Despite all the success you've achieved, do you still get nervous before you show a collection?
Yes, quite a lot. Like one of the biggest nightmare, because what happens, like when connections happening, then you think about, oh my God, like I forgot like so many crucial garments. That's one of the
Yeah,
nightmares which I get. Very
yeah,
crucial garment I forgot over there.
yeah, yeah.
And then closer, almost 2 days before the show, I get a nightmare. Oh, it was raining and a lot of important people could not attend the show.
Yes,
So it was all empty. The space was empty, models were walking. And now that is
right.
what's happening in the
It's a
pandemic.
nightmare. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
space
yeah,
is empty and models are walking.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
all these things I keep getting. I'm
yeah,
very nervous, but I
yeah.
must say, the process of almost 6 months of like thinking about a concept which is born like an embryo and
Yes,
seeing it develop like a small and exuberant child on runway
yes,
is the most amazing process.
right.
Right after the show, I get like a kind of depressed. It's very strange feeling which I'm sharing with you today. I don't know
No,
why. Right after the show,
yes.
I don't feel like what I'm going to look up to next morning. You wake
Wow.
up early, you spend 12 hours at a studio just doing something. Then when you come home, you still sketch. Sometimes you're sketching till 2 o'clock just to
Yeah,
get something right. And
correct.
then you have like suddenly, so somehow these reviews and the positive things, they save the day for me. And
So, so
otherwise,
it's so it's like emotionally spent. Is that what you mean? You feel like you've given it all, and then you feel kind of emptiness.
no, emptiness comes because I don't have like a purpose left after the show is
Right,
done.
right.
You
Yeah, you
know,
have to restart and rediscover
yeah,
after you've
you know,
recollected. Yes,
and then you have to again look for inspiration. Inspiration is almost like
yes,
falling in love. It's almost
right.
like a tangible, living thing next to you. When you
Yes,
see
yes,
garments growing in front of you, when you see entire
yes,
collection building up in front of you, and suddenly
yes.
you have to disconnect from that. You leave
Right,
it behind.
right,
Then there's the days of
right,
emptiness. All those that
right.
emptiness then gets filled with. I'm sometime working with Raish ji to do
Yes,
my little bit of MS work, or
right,
sometimes I'm like indulge
right.
with something else.
Right.
So
No, but that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Rahul. I mean, it's beautiful. Different creative people, react differently. I know that after I send my magazine to print, however late it is or early in the morning, I sleep very well. I feel like, okay, it's one thing off my head. But then, but I think what you say is something I want to think about a lot more. You spoke a little bit about criticism. Do you take criticism personally or do you take it constructively?
I think constructively, because I remember it. Like even Yamal, like I'm sharing here, like when you also told me, like, Rahul, there are a few things which you need to work upon, and few years back, which I stay in my head, and they stay right now. Also, I remember it. So it never gets flushed out. Praises,
Fantastic.
they usually like go behind somewhere,
Yes.
but all the criticism, it stays with me. I remember like
Yes.
Shefali in
Yes.
one of the reviews, one of the first couture show in India which I did. She
Yes.
gave a review and then she messaged me with a link and she said
Yes.
I was underwhelmed.
Right.
And I remember each and every word. Then I happened to call her, and
Yes.
when you call somebody, then you listen even more criticism that even stays
Right.
more with you. Then you start
Right.
working on it. So within 1 year of time, I came back and she wrote one of the most beautiful reviews about
Right.
Indian couture, like
Right.
possible.
Right.
So I think all designers, and this is like one thing which in India, which I'm thinking right now it's missing. 10 years
Yes.
back it was there,
Yes.
criticism. I
Hmm.
think criticism does not let you be complacent. It kind of
Right.
keeps you on
Correct.
toes, and
Correct.
your idea might be the best for this time for 2020.
Yes.
By 2021, you have to evolve and do something else.
Yes. So, Rahul, another quiz for you. One critic recently said of your India Couture Week show, Preth and Couture came in kissing distance of each other in similarity of spirit and body. Do you know who that was?
I think it was Voice of Fashion.
It was one of the strongest and most uncompromising voices in Indian fashion journalism, someone who you just mentioned. Please welcome your next surprise, my friend and editor of the Voice of Fashion, Shefali Vasudev.
Shivali. Hi, Shivali. How are you?
Hi, Jamal. Hi, Rahul.
Shefali, welcome to the India Story
Were you hearing
Continues.
all this?
Yes, I was.
And
I, I was hearing all this and cringed a little to get my name quickly associated with criticism, but I think I've roasted my reputation. It's too late to bring the bread back from that toaster. So, but
You know
very
what?
happy to be here.
You know what, Shefali, we say, right? You have a very, very, very long life.
and I had no idea that you are there. You're listening this. I was just giving example to Jamal about like because that review stays with me and it's going to stay with me forever.
And
Thank
I think
you.
that's a good thing, Shefali, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. And Jamal had instructed me to stay in the chat room and listen quietly till it was my turn to enter. So here I am.
No, well, welcome, Shefali, to the India Story Continues. You are one of the strongest watchers of fashion as it unfolds in India. Tell us your impressions of Rahul Mishra's journey.
Rahul, I like to think that I am amongst those fashion writers who have written and observed almost all collections of Rahul. And to the extent then that when he recently showed at India Couture Week, I had to take a decision for the Voice of Fashion to say Rahul ke show ka review nahi karenge because we'll end up looking like his PR agency. हर चीज पे हम लोग लिखते हैं, So having observed him and that India idea thing, one side Banaras, one side Kerala, Kasavu, Hindu, Muslim, reversibility. That's when I met Rahul physically for the first time. And I realized that he was both earnest and restless. He has a karmic restlessness about him that still continues. It's going to take a very long time and perhaps never to cap that. He's not going to ever kind of be satisfied or happy. That interested me in him. I also think that I'm a little defensive and guilty both for fashion because I think fashion is still about elitism. It's still about differences and discriminations. It's still about inequality in very many ways. Uh,
Yes.
and as long as we have that realization and then some people try to do something about it, we are perhaps inching closer to the zeitgeist, closer to the idea of India. If we speak of fashion in a vacuum, then we are alienating it. Rahul never alienated that. And
Right.
while from point to point his discourse would get mixed up with the beautiful clothes, uh, this restlessness makes him question that inequality. And so when he quotes, as I say in my reviews as well, from thinkers, from Rousseau to Gandhi, and then interprets art, which is European art, in his clothes, he's crossing the boundary and embracing diversity in his own way, saying, art come to me, inequality and equality come to me, philosophy come to me, existentialist quest and dilemma come to me. And then he tries to bring these all in his work, also through the vocal inclusion of craftsperson and their issues and their concerns, and taking sustainability towards a humane and human angle. And I think that makes Rahul very distinct and very important to the journey of Indian fashion. And I relate to Rahul. I look at Rahul. I mean, we are all very proud of him, and not because he's showing at Paris. I mean, I would be proud of Rahul if he was doing this work here. I'm really not, a big sucker for the Oscars or the Haute Couture Paris Week and all. Yes, it's great recognition and so forth, but it's the next step. You have to have a next step, and the next step could be Paris, and the next step could be Milan, and the next step could be Lucknow, for God's sake, or the India Story or Kolkata. So I don't look at the validation of Rahul from Paris as to be proud of him. I'm proud of him because Rahul understands India and he's able to give us a spoonful of India every time with every collection, and not many designer perhaps can do that consistently. Rahul
Rahul,
is beautiful but not bold. I have to add, Rahul is bold inside, but in his clothes, he has become the master of pretty. He has become the master of beautiful. He's become the master of extremely good-looking things and not avant-garde. And so he's not risk-taking in that sense. And I wish I could see those trains from time to time from Rahul. Nevertheless, his work is very, very engaging.
let me tell you, Rahul, from a lady who doesn't mince her words, this is high, high praise. What do you have to say in response?
I'm like really honored, and I'm one thing is for sure, like obviously in India, like I'm very, very lucky when I have like a voice like Shefali, who writes like straight from her heart, and whatever she believes in, she writes that. This is a biggest gift. I think like that if her review were not there in first season itself at haute couture, at couture in India, I would have never made to haute couture. Probably I would have maybe never made to this long journey of like whatever body of work we are trying to create. And I completely understand that, like, and that's where even obviously um, I also try to, like, this season has been very, very focused on commercial things. So touch wood, I'm sharing this with you that my July, August, September has been better than last year
Yes.
as a business wise. So that was something in pandemic, like you have to kind of like shift your gears towards that, because Paris Haute Couture show, we had a lot of like those ideas with a leaf or the three-dimensional things are happening. Those are again not very big commercial pieces. So we had almost 50% collection which was non-commercial. But when we think about like that's what I think pattern I would like to follow. Early in the January, do something which is like quite out there, and then slowly bring more prettiness to the clothes so that we can sell also. Because ultimately, I'm also trying to balance like very strong commercial thing, because other brands will not even employ so many people. And by the time, and one more thing, I'm sharing that I would like to do only 2 collections a year now, not like 4,
Right.
because
Right.
I have also realized that by the time our craftsmen are going to perfect the art, and if I keep
Yes.
changing every time, then they are kind of lagging behind. They're never able to write the benefit of that new technique which you have developed.
Yes.
So in that way, juggling a lot right now. So touch wood,
For those
and
of
I'm
you
very, very
who've
happy.
joined, no, for those of you who've joined in late, guys, this is not just banter. This is very high fashion, loaded conversation happening between a very, very well respected fashion critic and the designer who's giving his point of view. That is what you get on the India Story Continues.
So
Shafali, I'm going to bring you in over here. Oh, you have more to say.
yeah.
Should we do a story on voice of fashion
So
podcast?
the best thing is, Jamal, you also like have been very honest about it. You remember, like maybe you might have written that to me, but you spoke to me about that. In the same way, Shafali has been to
Yes.
my studios sometimes when I
Yes.
did one of the 3D collections.
Yes.
First is kind I shared with her, and
Yes.
she wrote for my Paris Ready to Wear show, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
And so for me, I think feedback, and again going back to the drawing of that animator who made for me in
Yes.
2006 2007, where I
Yes.
would go and hound my faculty
Yes.
that kindly see this sketch if you like this. So I will
Yes.
keep having that kind of feedback always. I
Yeah.
will like need
Well,
from you,
Shifali's
Shefali, always.
feedback is something I would trust in my personal life. So you please must take
Yes,
her opinion
yes.
in the professional life. Shifali, is there a question you have for Rahul Mishra that you've not been able to ask thus far?
Yes, and before I ask that, Jamal, the conversation has been engaging right from the start. All the questions that you have brought in and the comments that the ambassador has brought in has made this indeed a very, very engaging and a very
Thank you.
layered and nuanced conversation. Congratulations
Thank
to
you.
you for that. And I
Thank you.
want your top, your shirt, your blouse, whatever you call it. I have my eyes on it. My question to Rahul is that, as I said, the business of pretty and the business of couture that you have introduced, that seems to be becoming the legacy of Rahul Mishra. But there is breadth. And the pandemic, besides telling us a lot of things of sustenance and about equality and about the existentialist commonality that, at the end of it, we are nothing but human beings and we'll be wiped out by many things, including the virus, makes breadth, which means affordable, washable, easy to fold, easy to carry, जो हर जगह फंसे नहीं कपड़े, जिसमें इतनी सारी चीजें ना हो, जिनका थोड़ा पेड डाउन, जो माध्यम हो, जो सुंदर हो, लेकिन there's a simple melody to them. What is Rahul Mishra, both the house of Rahul Mishra, the brand, is doing about that, about clothes that a lot of people can buy and touch, because you touch people through design and through your conversation. Can we touch your clothes? If you keep making couture, many of us are not going to be able to touch your clothes at all.
I somehow respect that, but somehow my purpose and focus of late has been about, like, employing more and more people. So the slower a garment gets, more employment creates. So my thing was, like, I agree with you. I really do respect that. And Divya also had the similar kind of conversation with me. Rahul, can we do a little bit of print? And I'd be saying, no, we can't do print because print is faster process. So we might have to do. So I do not know. Like, I can't really say. This is also debate which is happening within us also. So, but nevertheless, I just want to say it, like, India, to me, I regard India with larger part of population who needs work today, how I can be instrument of providing them work and employment. Because what happens, a lot of these processes which are beautiful, like I can had a beautiful, digital printed version of the sari, which might look the similar kind of sari with little bit border over there, which will be at 1/10 of even 1/20th of the cost what I'm making in hand. But what happens, it kind of takes away like that much employability of so many people. So as a brand, I'm kind of enjoying also this entire narration of, like, extremely that affluent client meeting somehow through karma extremely needy person who needs employment. So I become almost like a bridge here. So and when I have a big dream, like, which I shared a lot of time, I know it might be laughable figure, I would employ 1 million people in my lifetime. So I have to make things as slow as possible, because if it starts getting produced in factories, I don't think things will be possible. And one more thing is there. I really feel in sustainable time, I think when we produce faster than human hand, we are missing the rhythm of the nature. And just this missing of rhythm with the nature, bringing all the catastrophe onto all of us. Maybe democraticness of fashion. Maybe I'm saying, in ready to wear, we have gone way too far. We are doing 6 seasons now. So we are consuming resources faster than what our planet can give us. Maybe slowing down the possibility, maybe instead of having, 10 pieces in wardrobe, having 5 mindful pieces, 100 pieces versus 5 mindful pieces might be a better thing for future. This also I'm debating within myself. Maybe you might say, oh, what consumer is going to do? Consumer has been used to of this kind of consumption. But I really feel this pandemic should bring a plateau to the consumption pattern the way we are doing. And now consumption should decline, whatever it does. Maybe it is important to make 1 outfit instead of 10 outfits, because your fabric consumption, resource consumption is the same, but it creates more employment. So for me, sustainability wise, these are the best answers which I'm trying to figure out. I think Arna is learning rhythm in her school at Ukti, and I'm learning from her school and Arna what the rhythm is all about. I'm trying to bring rhythm to entire dialogue sustainability, because anything which goes in natural pace, like human pace or soil space or plant space, will never go to unsustainable in the world. As you start putting machines which are faster than humans, things tend to get unsustainable.
I was listening to Deepak Chopra this morning, and you're sounding more profound than him. So, to the futurist in you, Rahul, we're going to take leave from Shefali right now. Shefali, thank you for
Thank you
joining us,
very
for the
much
entire team of
today.
the India story.
Thank you,
Thank
all
you
of you.
for being here with
Bye,
us.
Rahul. Bye, Jamal.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Rahul, we can't talk about your designs and not talk about the butterfly. It was born in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. So that means it's 10 years old today. Tell us about the 10-year-old butterfly.
So my actually first collection, which was actually it was almost 10 years because it was born in 2011. 2012 I showcased it. So it was called The Butterfly Effect. Somehow I love the movie, and then I thought about this entire, because I'm a science graduate and think about like how any occurrence, even fluttering of butterfly, can bring about a storm somewhere else in chain reaction, almost like so in that way, when I thought about like this entire idea, how the planet was just a simple flower, and slowly things evolved into gigantic looking buildings. So on one outfit you have the biggest structure possible on the planet, that's a building, biggest visual structure, and then next to that on the thing is a flower
Tiny
also,
little.
tiny little flower. But the both look equally light and all that. So that's where whatever I see, whether I see buildings, I take inspiration from that, a metropolis and all that. It's just about changing the perspective. And butterfly people for this time after 10 years was somehow dedicated to these people. Like when they said that, no, I wanted to work, come back to work, but sitting at home and earning and supporting my life is not enough. So it almost like Han Christian Andersen's quote came to my mind when she says, just living is not enough. One must have a bit of freedom, sunshine, and a little flower. So for me, these people became almost like a butterfly people, and I felt like almost like a gardener who is growing this pretty garden on the piece of fabric, and these people come and nectar and make the garment more beautiful because they pollinate everything. So it's a very beautiful symbiotic relationship with butterfly people. I think we all are butterfly people in that way.
Well, what a beautiful thought. With that, we are nearing the end of our episode today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a fun rapid fire before we go. So I'm going to urge you, Rahul, to come back with quick answers and be as frivolous and fun as you possibly can be.
Oh my
Correct?
God.
Are we ready? Okay, let's start. Growing up in Mahalsi or growing up in Mumbai, what would have been more beneficial to you?
I think Malhausi. It's a small little place, and I learned a lot with about diversity, about scarcity, and everything.
Can a Rahul Mishra garment be washed?
Yes, most of the embroideries one can wash. If the layer is, sometimes I do cotton layer, everything can be washed.
Yes. Out of these two women, who would you turn to for good professional advice? Your wife Divya or your publicist Perina Thapar?
I think this is a little tricky one, but obviously Divya is the
When they're
first one who gives
in
advice.
life, it's always tricky. Remember that.
Yeah. Obviously Divya, because Divya is the one who unsends everything, and she keeps me corrected, because there's no division between you as a person and what professionally you are.
Correct.
So she knows me better as a person in that way.
Correct, of course. Pret or couture, what's closer to your heart?
I think couture, because it involves more people, and I think poetry I love.
One Bollywood actress you'd like to dress today?
Wow, this is difficult. I never thought like that. Oh, leave it for me.
Clock is ticking.
I don't give like So
okay, pick one from the older times.
Nargis.
Wow. Okay. True or false, Rahul? Indian design today is only about wedding wear.
I think up to a certain extent true. In terms of business of design, but otherwise there's a great talent out there who's making some wonderful work.
Fair enough. Fashion is frivolous. True or false?
False.
A Bollywood showstopper. A Bollywood showstopper is not always necessary. True or false?
Never necessary. Never needed.
Finally, Rahul Mishra is the best designer in the world. True or false?
Long way to go. False.
Last question, also the toughest. Favorite woman in the world, wife Divya or daughter Anya? 4 years old, daughter Anya.
Oh my God. Arna.
Well, Divya will live with that. Last question before we sign off. Rahul, are you ambitious? And if yes, how ambitious? Is ambition in your dictionary a bad word in any way?
It's not a bad word. but I'm in a way ambitiously satisfied.
Wish you more of that. I'm telling you, Rahul, you're a guru and a fashion designer combined in one. I think the profession I'm going to use for you is futurist in the future. Rahul Mishra, what a pleasure it has been. Your simplicity shines stronger than your many, many successes, and that itself speaks volumes of you as a man. We wish you the very best. Do keep making every Indian proud. On
Thank
behalf of
you.
Mrs. Nyotia and the entire team at the India Story, thank you for being part of this today. And for the rest of you, do keep watching for more workshops, performances, and conversations as the India Story continues.
Thank you, Jamal.
Okay.
Yeah.